Okay, I hear you.
In the meantime, I will welcome everyone to KIndSoups. KIndSoups is one of KindWorks projects that we do weekly. We cook together a big pot of homemade soup, enough to feed our own families and to share with many others. And today we have Susan Krys, who's leading us in Potato Leek Soup. There she is. Hi, Susan.
Hello.
Handing it off to you.
Thank you. And thank everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining on this incredibly beautiful day. So I'm honored that anybody showed up today because it is just so nice out and great to see the sunshine. We are today going to be doing potato leek soup, which is a very French soup, although it was purported to be the favorite of Julia Childs. And she would say it's perfectly simple, but it's also perfectly delicious. And she actually, her comment on the potato leek soup thing was it's actually an American soup, not a French soup. And it is purported to be potage parmentier, which is a French soup. It's a very basic, but very hearty and delicious soup that actually, when doing my little leek fun facts that I looked up while I was figuring out what I was going to do with this, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to share a few things. One being the Julia Child fact, but she also made vichyssoise very famous. And vichyssoise, I think, is what you all did back in the summer of last year, which is the addition of cream to the potato leek soup. We're not going to be adding the cream this time, which will make it easier for us to be able to share it and not worry about the dairy issue with the freezing and all of that. But vichyssoise is has a funny story too. Apparently, I found this really crazy website that talks about vichyssoise and how King Louis XV apparently was very paranoid about being poisoned. And so he had like the court taster who would taste his food before it was brought to him. And, traveling from the kitchens up to where the king was took some time. And I think the website said something about, if you've ever brought, food to a hungry, powerful person, it often would arrive cold from the kitchen. So vichyssoise was actually made into a cold soup so that when it was presented as it was supposed to have been, which was a cold soup. We're doing a warm soup, a warm potato leek soup. And we're going to get started. If you have not yet chopped all of your vegetables, please go ahead. This is a super fast and easy soup. Really you should be able to catch up. I can't stress enough that the leeks can hold in all of their little folds lots of grit and even little pebbles. So I found, I was telling Deb earlier, that I ended up easily 3-4 times rinsing and draining my leeks that I had chopped. Even after I floated them, there were still some little grit and things hanging on in there. In fact, some little pebbles came out, which can really wreak havoc on your garbage disposal. So be careful when you put things into your garbage disposal that little pebbles from the leeks aren't going down in there, because it's really bad on the blades. At any rate, so hopefully you're in process. I've done my whole mise en place here. I have all of my ingredients. I know sometimes questions come up about sizes of things. So I just wanted to say, when I talked about a medium potato, this is what I was referring to. I have rather large hands, but it fits basically in the palm of my hand as a medium potato. So if you have more, you have less. It's entirely, forgiving, as we always say. Soup is forgiving, and this one is particularly forgiving. I think I have enough potatoes that I might end up doing something with the extras, like making them to a little morning potato hash or popping them in a quiche or whatever, because I have this enormous bowl of potatoes.
Susan, can I ask you a quick question about the potatoes? Yes. Did you, it looks like you're not peeling them. I had not touched mine yet because I wasn't clear. It didn't say to peel.
I did not peel them. The Yukon Golds have such a thin skin that you end up wasting so much potato. So I'm going to pull out a couple little bits. And you can also see I'm not very accurate when it comes to sizes. So like this one's probably twice the size. It doesn't matter. It's all going to be blended. So no, don't go to the trouble of peeling. I just sliced them about maybe 3/4 to an inch thick. And then I chopped until I got roughly, pieces like this. So super easy. Mine are all sitting in water, which I'll drain in a moment. again, there, you don't have to worry if your leeks are a bit wet or your potatoes are a bit wet. That's not a problem because it's a soup. If you're going to be putting potatoes into a quiche, obviously all that water would be too much, but with the soup, it's fine. Don't worry about that bit of it. And then the other thing I wanted to say, unless anybody has questions, I don't have the whole gallery view, so please chime in if you have questions, interrupt me. I tend to talk. So the other thing is on the garlic. Whoop, yes?
I'm just laughing at you because you talk almost as much as I do, as you know. Yes.
Sorry.
I do have I have comments for Kelly. I used yellow potatoes. I didn't use Yukon Golds. And I also did not peel them because remember, we're going to use an immersion blender. And when we use an immersion blender, it's not going to matter that they have skins on them.
Right.
That's one thing. And the other thing is you know that green bag you gave me with the Christmas tree on it? Do you want that back or can I just use that to donate soups?
That was a donation bag. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Awesome.
Tomorrow, I'll leave it there. Okay?
Thank you for taking all that, Marge.
Oh, no
They had
problem.
to make 6 trips.
And Marge,
Yeah,
thank you
not a
for
problem.
sharing. Yeah, you know, yellow potatoes work, even russets work. I think I said in my notes that you can use a russet. It's a starchier potato. I kind of like that in the fall, winter. It's kind of a thicker, heartier soup. But for the spring, I like using the Yukon Golds or using yellows. Either one works fine. I think when I did my little experiment last weekend, I had a combination because I had a few yellows left over from whatever we had done a couple weeks ago. And they hadn't grown too many eyes yet, so I popped them in the soup. So, you know, potatoes, as long as you're, you know, not using, I probably wouldn't use a red potato because some of those red ones tend to get waxier, but they probably would be fine too. On garlic, the other thing is garlic is not traditionally in potato leek soup. I like it, so I added some to mine and I basically tripled that. Because it is going to be quite, you know, a lot. I'm going to turn on my heat here, otherwise I'm never going to get going. But garlic cloves, you know, when you said, I think I said 8 garlic cloves, you know, there are these garlic cloves and there are these garlic cloves. So use your best, you know, best judgment as to what you want, how much garlic flavor you want in the background there. It really doesn't matter. I tend to use all of these when we're cooking together, and then I look in my cute little garlic pot that I keep in the cabinet here, and then I end up with like all of these that at some point I have to deal with because they're so tiny, but totally doable. So you should, at this point, if you haven't, if you've already chopped everything, you should be getting going with your oil. I divided into 2 pots, so I've got about a tablespoon and a half in each large pot. And then for the butter, it's again optional. If you don't prefer to put butter in, just use oil. I like the richness that butter adds, so I'm going to be naughty and use a little butter in here as well to give it that authentically French flavor, as I like to say. So into the pot that'll go.
Just remember, if you do decide to use the butter, that you need to write dairy on your labels.
Yes, great point. And in fact, I was saying to Deb earlier that when I made this, I made a combination of, I used a combination of vegetable and chicken stock, which again, I like the flavor of both. This one pot is really, really aggressive. Okay, you know, calm down. You get like really authentic French going on here. So celery and leeks can go in together. And got this massive bowl of leeks. So mine came from my farmer's market, and I was chatting with Deb earlier, and I said, you know, I pre-ordered them, and I ended up with like 36 leeks, and some of them were really small and some were bigger, and it was a lot to clean up. But there's a lot of cleaning that goes on with all of these.
Well, as you know, I must fully admit to never following a recipe. Stop laughing, Deb.
Right?
Right, never. So of course I did use my 3 leeks, but I decided I wasn't going to make 9 leeks or whatever the number was because it becomes just too expensive. So I used 2 Vidalia onions and 1 white onion, and I think it should just be fine. I used
Oh, be perfect.
sweeter onions to deal with that. But right now I have to leave you. I have to go outside and harvest a sprig of thyme. How many sprigs of thyme?
Really up to you. I said 4 because when I did the last pot, I put 2 in the pot, and I've got 2 pots, so I think I said 4.
Yeah, you did say 4. Okay, I'm going outside. I'll be back.
Okay. And if you don't have fresh sprigs of thyme, dried thyme works fine. Dried thyme, what you want to do with the herbs before they go in the pot is, the thyme and the oregano especially, I think we did this when we were cooking one of our Afghan soups, is, put it into your palm and really crush it before it goes into the pot, because that's going to release a lot of that really delicious flavor. And if you don't have oregano, you can substitute marjoram or marjoram, depending on how you pronounce it. And you can use about double the amount of marjoram as you would for oregano, because it's a milder flavor, but they are good substitutes for each other. So you can totally go that route as well in the Marge school of substituting what you have. And these leeks
Cheryl?
really do.
Cheryl, are you there? Did you hear Marge say that she only used, okay, good. So
Yeah, I don't know how many regular onions she used. I have 2 leeks only. And
I used 2 Vidalias and 1, I bought a white onion. I don't normally buy white onions. I usually use yellow onions, but I thought maybe that would give a different taste to it rather than the yellow. And it's kind of a little early in the thyme season. So we have these little sprigs.
Actually, that's great.
And this one, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I have the same thing, and I ended up with I took kind of just the tops, and what I found was last weekend when I used them, I couldn't even find the stems. I think they just like sort of melted into the pot. So, and then I never encountered any nasty stems, but you can see like this, because they're new and springtime, they're green, so they're not hard, and you don't have to go searching for them forever to remove them from the pot.
I'm wondering if I have too much time here. This is a lot of time. When
Marge, do you have too much time on your hands?
I do. And Lisa, I almost called you today to tell you not to run off and try to find time somewhere because I had a lot of time. But I forgot I was gardening.
Funny you, Marge. I bought a couple of thyme plants 2 weeks ago, so I had plenty of time. And the tarragon that I bought for last week's soup has grown. So I even had fresh tarragon.
Oh, good.
I bought all of the leeks at the Giant in Westbard on Sunday, and raided the Giant at the Cabin John Mall today. So mine is very leaky.
No, mine is not. I bought mine. I must admit, I bought mine in Potomac, I guess. I could have bought them in Westbard since I passed by the other day, but I didn't stop.
Oh, there was no more left. I bought them all.
It's a good thing I didn't stop.
I have a leek question. So
Call a plumber?
find all the dirt, and I'm not finding any dirt.
So even when you chop them, yours aren't dirty at all? Wow,
No.
that's like winning the lottery.
Where did you buy them?
Harris Teeter.
Really?
Maybe they were hydroponically grown.
Maybe.
I don't know. I've only cooked with leeks with us once or twice, so I'm not really sure, but okay, good.
I have to say my leeks were very clean too, and it's hit or miss when you buy them. But I found I cut them to size, cut the bottoms off, have that white light green piece, and then I slice it down lengthwise and run water down through it.
Yep.
Which is much easier than doing small slices and floating them and draining them. So.
Well,
So actually-
I did what you did, Lisa.
Yeah,
I did what you did, and then I soaked them, like Susan said, in a big bowl.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I rinsed, I dumped the water a couple of times. And I will say my leeks, I've seen much worse. They were cleaner than usual, but there was definitely dirt in them. And I was very upset. After I put them in the pot, I saw that one of them had a spot of dirt on it. So I quickly grabbed it out, rinsed it off, and threw it into the next vegetable broth.
Marge, that's because I got all the clean leeks.
Oh, thank you. You know, maybe we should all write complaints about this. Trader Joe's used to sell frozen leeks, pre-chopped, and they discontinued them. And that would just make our lives so much easier. They'd be less expensive. They'd be less work. It just would be a wonderful thing. I don't know if they ever plan on getting them back.
I wonder why they stopped carrying them. That's weird.
So
It
I was
is.
there recently in the last month, and there were 2 or 3 items that I always really liked in there that they didn't have. And so I went over to the manager and I asked about them, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we don't have those anymore. Yeah, we're not carrying those anymore." And I was like, "Wow, like all 3 of these things." And he said that they're just still really having major supply chain issues. That is the reason why they have discontinued things. It's not really them. It's like whatever parts of that are related to the supply chain, they're having trouble getting it. So they've, some of that stuff may come back eventually.
Yeah, I think the leeks were discontinued a little before that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But unfortunately, yeah, it's too bad because it would make life a lot easier. Wait, let me go plant these thyme in the soup.
Yeah, I always used to find with traders that I would really get into something that I enjoyed, and then they would discontinue it. I'd be like, wait, I love that. There used to be like a dumpling sauce that was so delicious, and
Yeah.
couldn't find it. They just stopped carrying it, and it was like one by one. I went to the one in Rockville, was where I used to get it, and then I ran to the one in Bethesda. Can I get it in Bethesda? And they had it for like a couple more weeks, and then they discontinued it. It's like,
I know that is a bummer because they have a lot of really unique things, and like Marge said, like time-saving things that you stumble upon. And so when it goes away, it's really, or you find something that your kids actually like really like, and so of course you want to continue that. But
right.
I also wanted to say that we love potato leek soup in this house, and my daughter in particular, my eldest daughter, who's about to come home from college next week, it's her favorite soup. So I'm so happy that we're making this tonight because I'm going to save some for her and see if she notices. It's not the same recipe. I mean, obviously it's potatoes and leeks, but stock. But the one that I have is almost more of it's not a vichyssoise, but it does have creme fraiche in it at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a little creamier. So I'm really looking forward to trying this soup tonight. It smells delicious. I can't wait to eat it.
Well,
I'm sure it's going to be fantastic.
I hope you like it. This
Sure,
is my take on it because I added some things that you don't normally see in recipes, but I like to do that. Like when I'm cooking, I often find that, for my palate, there are things that I want to change. And my little trick on doing that, before I say this, I'm going to say, if you have been sauteing your leeks, you can add your garlic. My leeks are nice and soft now. I've added my garlic in. I got to turn my heat down a little bit.
Okay.
And I just got to myself.
Yeah, I'm in I put garlic in everything camp, whether it calls for it or not, because I just think garlic enhances the flavor of everything. And it's also so good for you that it's a way to kind of put a superfood into everything, when you're feeding your family. I always feel like if there's nothing else that they ate that was good in that day, like that the garlic is like sort of it's like a vitamin.
Exactly.
So Susan, when I'm simmering, because I've reached the simmer point, when I simmer, am I simmering with or without the lid on the pot?
Without.
Without. Okay, just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Sure. So what I started to cut myself off saying was, when I'm making something and I'm trying to figure out, what I want to do with it, it's not quite to my palate, I will take whatever it is in a spoon and I will put my nose into different herbs while I'm tasting it. And I'll say, okay, yep, that's what it needs. And that really has helped me to develop recipes that I like. because it's sort of like wine tasting, right? Where it's so much of it is the cheers, is the aroma. And when I get to the aroma that I feel should be there, I add a little bit of it. And then I think, okay, is that right? Yep, that's what was missing. That's what I needed. So the great thing is once you've gotten to this point, you can basically add, once your garlic is sauteed a little bit, you can add all the rest of your ingredients and let the soup do its thing. That's why I love this soup, because it's so easy. I actually add both vegetable and chicken broth because I like the flavor of the chicken. But you can keep it vegetarian by just using vegetables. You can, and I actually, when I made this before, I gotta quiet this one pan down, or pot down, it's so loud. You can also add water, as we often do, right? So you're not using that many cups of stock or broth. So feel free to use any combination of vegetable, chicken, water, broth, stock that make you feel like it's gonna taste the way you want it to taste.
My feeling about that was that I've used 16 cups of broth at this point, and I thought my broth was a little bit on the strong side. I just made it yesterday. But before I decide whether I'm going to dilute it with more water, I'm going to wait until after the simmer and see if I don't want to add too much more water, because I didn't use quite as many potatoes and quite as many leeks. But you know, we'll see how it turns out after I use the immersion blender and after it's cooked and all that other stuff.
Right. I do seem to have enough potatoes for a small army here. My goodness.
As you know, I am not a potato lover, so to me, it's like, I'm trying to decide on the harshalom soup next week. And the choice is, for those of you who are interested, let me see, on page 30, which is, a roasted tomato and rice. That sounds good. Or a corn and roasted pepper chowder. They're both in this New England Soup Factory cookbook, which has now been renewed 3 times and must go back, or 2 times and must go back to the library soon. And I just can't decide what I want to do. I'm torn. I think
they both sound delish.
I think the
I'm
roasted
voting,
tomato
I'm
was
voting for the
easy.
corn, because you just did a tomato and tomatoes aren't plentiful yet. So
I know, you're absolutely right. We did that excellent gazpacho, the Einer Garten gazpacho soup last week, which was really easy, except for all the chopping. But if you have a food processor, then it's
Do
not
you
as big
not?
a deal as you know, I don't have a food processor. I did everything by hand.
would you like one?
What?
Would you like one?
I think there may be one somewhere in the house. It seems to me, and we're going back 100 years. Remember when banks used to give gifts for opening accounts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for some reason, my mother got a food processor. This food processor, if I could only find it, has never been used. I think it may be in my house unless I donated it somewhere, because I'm like, I can chop food. This is not, I need something that cleans lettuce. I don't like touching lettuce. It's, you know, another one of my idiosyncrasies. Celery doesn't bother me. Cabbage doesn't bother me. Lettuce. Anyway. I knew it's silly. So yeah, so I chopped, I chopped it all, which was fine. I compared my soup to Hedda's soup, and she used a food processor. And I guess it depends on how much you process to determine, just like the immersion blender, to determine how chopped up it was. And I thought they were pretty close. Mine was a little chunkier because it had, slightly larger pieces. But it was good. It was a great soup. We should do it this summer. We definitely should do it. It was a lovely recipe and extremely easy, except a lot of chopping. So let's pick a date and do it at some point.
Do you have a blender, Marge?
Oh yeah, I have an immersion blender and I have a regular blender, but I hate the blender. I don't like cleaning the blender. It's not, that's why the immersion blender is, as Sherry Stahl says, changed my life.
I'd rather clean a blender than a food processor.
Yeah.
For me, that's the
Oh,
worst.
really? So
I
that,
almost never use my food processor just because of the pain of cleaning it.
really? Okay, so even if I find this thing, I may not be happy with it. Okay.
Well,
I should
Marge,
really
Well,
look.
that's just me.
my kids, I don't know if this will help you guys, but my kids claim that if you put a little bit of dish soap and water in your blender and then turn it on, it cleans it almost 99% of the way. And Julia's given
That's
us the
really
big thumbs
clever.
up.
If you have a Vitamix and you do,
Vitamix.
that's what they tell you. You put a little bit of dish soap and you whir it around, it cleans it.
Oh,
Sorry for the noise.
okay, maybe that will make me happier, but again, using the immersion blender is just so much easier
I
than
do
any
love a
of
good
that.
immersion blender, yep.
So
Well,
this
Yeah.
is,
Susan recommended that soup to you, a different Susan Morden. And, you know, I've known her since our kids were little, and every soup she recommends, she gave, remember the chicken tortilla we made twice last year? That recipe came from her. She's good on recipes. I'll ask her for recipes for you, Marge.
they have to be vegetarian. They,
Oh, that's
Either
gonna
that or
cut
you have
down
to-
on her inventory.
right. Either that or you use that famous faux chicken osum bouillon yellow container with the
No,
red
we'll
top,
go
whatever they,
vegetarian. We'll find something.
that sounds good. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that. I think I'm gonna do both of these soups, but you're right. I should probably hold off on the tomato because we did the gazpacho last week.
August is the perfect time to do the tomato one because, you know, everybody has so many of them. So I've just put all my herbs in, but I also kept my tops, celery tops. And those are so yummy, but have to be removed, of course, at the end. So that you're not like dealing with leafy stuff in your soup.
So I was wondering about that, Susan. Couldn't we just blend that along with everything else?
Oh, yeah, you probably could. I wasn't thinking about the fact that it is immersion blended. Yeah, I guess you could. I'm so used to making minestrones and things where I then, you know, fish them out, but I didn't even think of that.
Okay.
Too late. I put mine in with my next vegetable stock, frozen, whatever that is, plastic bag.
Wow.
thing.
Smart.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I need to tell you what my daughter told me, and you can tell me if this sounds crazy because I've not tried it. She claims that if you put a spoon into a champagne bottle, it will keep the fizz when you put it in the refrigerator. It does. I don't know if it works.
I think that's true if you drink it all on the first night. And then you put that spoon in there or whatever. Julia, we're not buying that, are we? No. Michelle,
If you
wanna
drink
weigh
it
in
all on the
that one?
first
That
night, you
sounds
don't need a spoon.
ridiculous.
Well,
Lisa?
no, because we started it at a brunch. We had it at a brunch and there was leftover. And she said if you put the spoon in, it would keep its fizz.
Crazy.
Marge, here's something that's going to change your life.
Oh, baby.
Yep.
It is called Kappa Bubbles by Kappa Bunga. It is wonderful for anything sparkling. You have this little collar that goes on the bottle and has a screw top. Then you take the top and screw it on, and it keeps the effervescence for, I suppose if you didn't drink it in 2 days, it has kept it for 4 for us. So the
How clever.
Kappa Bunga is really, really wonderful.
Spelled with a C or a K?
C-A-P-A, I think B-U-N-G-A. Really excellent product, tried and tested in my own home. So I've used
You're
it
like
for-
the commercial. This is
I've
the
used it for
commercial break.
champagne, Prosecco.
You know, if you had invited me over, you wouldn't have needed that tool.
I'll remember next time, Mark.
Okay,
Probably
okay.
in the fridge.
Okay, so there were, yeah, that's one thing I'm gonna look at on Amazon. And the other thing that I needed, my brother-in-law told me, I recycle my Keurig cups. You know, I peel off the metal and I dump out the coffee grounds and I remove the paper and I put them out with the recycling. And when I was up in Boston, he told me that, oh, he was about to order there's some gadget that you can do, does all that for you so your hands don't end up permanently brown from the coffee grounds. But then he checked his recycling and found out that where he lives, they won't take the Keurig cups. So I was like, oh, I've been going to all this effort, so I should check. But Montgomery County does take the Keurig cups.
So he's gonna
Yeah.
ship them to you to clean now.
Exactly. Montgomery County is,
Don't
Montgomery
you
County is
dare
really
say
good
it.
about what they take.
Yeah.
But then there are lots of places that will do those Keurig cups separately. Like there's a whole recycling thing that REI used to do. They don't do as much as they used to, but if you would bring things like candy bar wrappers, they would take, yeah, they had one recycling, they still do those. They also used to have a Tom's of Maine bin where you could put all of your used toothpaste tubes, toothbrush heads, makeup things. I mean, it was great. They don't seem to have that one post-COVID, but they used to have it. It was really helpful.
Susan, REI?
REI in Rockville. They still do the candy wrappers and things like that. And I also give them some of those more cellophane-y, like if I have a thing of rice that came in the pouch that was kind of more metallic, they take those. I'd have to go on their website to see everything that they take. But it did seem to have changed post-COVID.
I'm surprised by the candy wrappers. I'm sorry. And in
Isn't
fairness,
that great?
no, we don't eat candy. So I don't understand. Are you talking about like the paper of a Snickers bar or the plasticky thing of
That's
a
actually
Three Musketeer?
plastic. Yep,
Oh, it is.
that
Oh.
plasticky wrapper. So, there's so many things that counties won't recycle, right? And unfortunately, unfortunately, it's like, sorry, not sorry. Montgomery County says that they'll recycle a lot of stuff, but I don't know if you've ever spent time up at their recycling facility, but I used to work for an association. We went up to spend a day watching the recycling process, and most of the recycling that is neither a 1 nor a 2, because 1 and 2 are recyclable and are worth, quote unquote, worth recycling. Most everything else isn't, and they've not succeeded in bailing it and selling it like they wanted to. So I'm really surprised that they still take it. And I think part of the reason why they'll still take things is they want to cut down on the confusion that was created by the industry, where they created all these are called RIC codes. The numbers are resin identification codes, and it just created an enormous amount of confusion, because like, who's going to pay attention to 7 different codes and what they mean and when you can and cannot recycle them? And so it's really become a huge mess, which is unfortunate. So I tend to look for things that Montgomery County either used to say they recycled and didn't, or still say they recycle and really kind of don't. And hence I found the Tom's of Maine thing and REI's recycling and things like that. I think Mom's Market in Rockville also does some recycling of things other than just blown film, which is your plastic, your typical store plastic bags or dry cleaner bags. Like that blown film can all go into one thing at your grocery stores, right?
Right.
As well.
So
But I think
don't
Mom
know-
takes more stuff as well. I think they do a Tom's of Maine collection type thing too.
I don't know if I asked you this a couple of weeks ago. Someone gave me stacks of CDs, those silver discs that are round and, CDs.
Right.
Do you know, I mean, it sounds like based on reading the Montgomery County website, I can take those up to Shady Grove and put them with the computer stuff. But do you know anyone else who takes them that might actually use them, as opposed to God knows what they're going to do with them? Like Deb Lang and Kind Works. Do you think Kind Works might take a stack of CDs?
Not
No.
happily.
What?
Not happily.
Now,
You know what?
no,
they're
but
for?
but here's
You're
my
happy or miserable. If you're going to use them, it doesn't matter.
so Marge, here's an idea. There's a group in Alexandria called Upcycle, and they put together kits for teachers and people who are doing art projects. And
Right.
I actually had a whole bunch of stuff. They'll take, they have it all on their website, but they'll take things like bottle caps and corks and pretty much anything you can make an art project out of, string and ribbons, and obviously.
Susan, you just muted yourself.
take these things and make them into, you know, kits and things that they share with teachers. And I was actually going to take some, you have to make an appointment to drop it off. And it took me like 6 weeks to get an appointment. You know, cleaning out the house in preparation for the renovation. So trying to find where we can find things, you know, give things away as opposed to have them go to landfill. So I found Up County, or Upcycle, sorry, and made the appointment. And then I happened to also find FreeCycle and signed up for that in Rockville and was giving away mirrors. And this woman showed up who was absolutely lovely. She's a teacher at Lycée Rochambeau, the French school. And when she arrived and started talking about what she was going to do with these 3 mirrors that we had, she said, "Oh, I'm an art teacher at the school." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool. Hey, I've got, you know, do you take other things? Do you need other things?" And she said, "We could use anything." So I said, "Well, I've got these 3 boxes of things I was going to take to this upcycle thing in Alexandria next week, but if you could use them." And she took everything. She was absolutely delighted. I found more things in my basement and she took all of that for the kids to use for art. So all that to say, I think you could reach out either to Upcycle. I don't recall whether or not they take those, but they are something people could make art out of. But
Do we have the name of this art teacher, or if I look up the lycée, I should be able to find? Do you remember?
I can reach out to her and ask her directly. I don't want her to, you know, suddenly
Oh, that's
feel
fine.
intimidated, but let me reach out to her and ask her if
Thank
she
you.
would be interested.
Mhm.
I mean, we had this crazy thing in our basement that, I don't know, I think my husband's friends stole back when they were in college, and it was like a hazard light about this big, orange, on a stand. And thanks, Deb's given us the link for Upcycle.
Mhm.
At any rate, I was, you know, what are we going to do with this thing? He's like, "Oh, you know, I've had that since college when whoever it was decided to abscond with it in Baltimore." So I brought it up from the basement on her second trip here and said, "Hey, I don't know what this is, but could you?" She's like, "This is great. I'll take it too." So I found a person who, you know, has now turned all of this stuff into art projects with their students, which I just love.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it's
That's
funny, I
fantastic.
keep trying to give it to Diane Carlick, who does do all those little art projects just for herself
Mhm.
with the bottle caps. I don't know if you've been to her house, Deb, where she has the
Yep.
butterfly.
Yeah, love it.
You know, I tried to convince her she needs to do an art project with them. And then I tried to convince a friend of mine who's a working artist that he needs to do something with them. But I'm
I
not
think
being
this
successful.
upcycle place is for you, Marge. Wait till you check this stuff out.
Well,
It's pretty amazing everything they take.
I like the thing that Julia just posted. I'm going to look at that one too. About,
They
you
take
know,
CDs. They listed on
Yeah.
the things that they take.
okay. I mean, I've got a bunch of them that someone decided, you know, people give me stuff that's just, you know, in many cases, just junk, knowing that I will find a place for it because I feel guilty throwing it out. You know,
Exactly. Yep. But it is amazing when you start looking around. There are people who take all sorts of things. I mean, we managed to clean out our basement of so many things. I mean, we've been in this house 21 years, and wow, there were things that I was like, I cannot believe this is still down here. How are we going to get rid of it? And I just looked online, and I mean, Marge, you helped me with the cleaning supplies. That was
Mhm.
awesome. The what was that, Cordell House? They're
no,
in Bethesda.
they went to, did
Yeah.
you're right. They did go to Cordell House, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because Stepping Stones didn't want them. Okay.
Right. They took open cleaning supplies, which was great. I mean, most of them were mostly full, if not, you know,
Mhm.
98% full. So it wasn't like I was giving them the remnants, but most places wouldn't, nobody else would take them. So
Well, they took all those little egg salads and tuna salads that I had from Har Shalom, whatever that was, a couple of weeks ago. They were very, very lovely.
So now the only thing we have left, and maybe you have a suggestion on this, we have a roughly 50-inch Samsung plasma TV that works, but it has 2 vertical stripes, green stripes on either side of it. So it needs somebody to repair it. And I contacted the only repairman shop, whatever, that's local, to see if maybe they want to take it and repair it and sell it. And I got no response. But I also put it on free cycle as, hey, free, you need to get it fixed. And TVs are so cheap now. Nobody wanted it. So it's the only thing still sitting in the basement that needs to go. So any suggestions on a TV that needs apparently pretty minor repair, but
You know, this is maybe worth looking into. Does Montgomery County, don't they have, isn't one of the programs, is it Einstein? I don't know which one. One of the high schools has sort of a technical training program, doesn't it?
Einstein.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'd look on, look on the website and,
Uh-huh.
maybe they'll take it.
That's a really good idea. I will, because I'm like, talk about not wanting to throw something in a landfill. It's a huge TV.
Mhm.
It works fine, except for these silly stripes that, just need somebody to open the back and
Who's
tweak.
barking at me? Who is barking at me, Deb? Is that one of yours?
Yeah, that's the rescue Penny. She's the watch pup. The 2
Oh.
Ridgebacks are probably sleeping while she barks.
So for those of you who know that my dog was dying, he has been resurrected. It's a very odd thing.
Oh, it's a good thing.
It's,
He's doing
yeah.
okay.
I mean, I was ready to put him down about, was that a week ago, a week and a half, week ago, I guess, whenever
No,
we
you
got
were
back from
yelling
Boston.
lovingly at him last Monday.
It was, he wasn't moving. I mean, he couldn't move. He couldn't do anything. He didn't eat. He didn't drink. He didn't anything. And he's like, granted he's 16 years old, but he's back to his normal
Good.
self. A little more shaky, but not much, not enough that,
I'm so glad to hear that. I was really worried because I think
yeah, thank you. I mean, it is.
last
I mean,
soup drop off that I did, you were at the vet or had just come back.
Oh,
from the vet.
right. God, right. I mean, they did find a mass on his liver. They know that there is a problem, but this was sort of like you get blindsided because you don't expect it, and then all of a sudden. So now I feel great that he's great. He doesn't seem to be in pain. This is a good thing. We are all happy,
Oh,
That is a good thing.
except for maybe the cat. I have to ask her.
She's secretly trying to get rid of him, is she? Not so secretly trying to get rid of him.
The first night he was back, when he was so sick, when we picked him up from the boarding place, she was sleeping practically on top of him. She wouldn't leave him. She could tell something, she knew something was wrong. It was very sweet of her. So yeah,
That's lovely.
they're okay together. I mean, they're not best buddies, but they're buddies.
That's good. So I don't know if anybody's to the point where you are, I think I called it fork squash tender. So if you can take it against the side or in my case, I have a spatula that I'm using and squash it with a fork quite easily, then you're ready to immersion blend it, or blend it if you're using stand-up blender. I have one pot that's basically ready and one pot that took longer to boil because it's taller, and I'm about ready to, yeah, I've got some good fork squashing going on here. Oh, it looks so yummy. And my mother would take the potato at this point out of the pot because she used to make a potato leek soup, which for some reason I don't have the recipe for, but obviously was the basis of what I ended up writing down. And she just loved potatoes, like any potatoes, boiled potatoes. So she would, at this point, she would steal a few of these from the pot and let them cool a little bit so that she could eat them on the side as a little snack.
so this was your mom's recipe that you've now made into your own?
So she made a potato leek recipe, soup recipe, but I don't have it.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I imagine that the basis of it must be her recipe, but I know she didn't use tarragon in it. I've tinkered with the herbs because I didn't remember what she did. And my sisters were both traveling when I was trying to do this last weekend. So I couldn't get anything from them. Like, can you send me her recipe? And I'm like, oh, I can do this. I can figure it out. I've never written it down, and I'll just, like I said, I just sort of threw in there what I liked. So.
Oh, that's special. I like that.
The potato is very tasty, but it is way too hot, and certainly way too hot to use the immersion blender at this point. I need to let it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to let it cool a bit so you don't burn yourself terribly.
Comment and a question. I
Yes.
want to tell you all that I'm having a KIndWorks day because two of your volunteers, Deb, Julia and Julie, I think it was Julia and her son Matthew came by to pick up a dresser and take it to Hyattsville.
Where I saw it and helped carry it up and in, and it
I
looked
asked if there was help
beautiful.
there, and tomorrow they're coming. Today they got the desk and the hutch downstairs too. I mean, hats off to them. I was like, you're bringing strong people. This is upstairs. These are big pieces of furniture. Julia doesn't have to go to the gym for a while. She had to work.
Exactly.
So she and Matthew came, and then they brought down the other pieces, which are sitting right by my front door. And she just texted me, she and Julie Wong will be by tomorrow, about 9:30 in the morning to take the other pieces over there.
You can't get rid of us. And then
so
I'll see you on
excited.
Wednesday.
Yes, I know. I'm so excited to be donating this furniture. And she told me that it's going to the apartment of a single woman who is a journalist from Afghanistan who recently had a piece published in the Times.
Well, it was an opinion piece, but I
Opinion
can
piece.
send it
She's
to
gonna-
you if you're
she's gonna-
interested.
Yeah,
It
she's
was from
gonna-
last April.
Okay.
And she warned everyone that this is not going to go well. She was able to
Right.
get a meeting with the Taliban last April,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they basically wouldn't look at her. And she is the spunkiest Afghan woman I have ever
Oh,
met.
that's great. I'm so excited. That's so nice to know. Yeah. And now I'm motivated to like do something else with this empty bedroom of my daughter's. My daughter's thrilled that that's where the furniture is going. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah, good. Good.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. And then, so Deb mentioned she's going to see me Wednesday night. Deb is one of our judges at a local Montgomery County spelling bee, grown-up spelling bee. Yes. Yeah. She's a
Can
judge,
Deb spell?
one of three, to it raises funds and the profile of a advocacy group that advocates for more funds for adult English literacy classes and provides professional training for instructors. So, and we are back in person, but we also have a link if you want to stream it. If you email me, I will make sure you get the link to stream it from home, if that's of anyone's interest. Yeah. So
That's so fun.
yeah, so Deb will be a great addition to it. And I have a question. Can anybody recommend a really good stock pot? Now that I've been doing this for a while, I feel
Yes.
like I need a better quality, heavier bottom that doesn't like burn the onions right away while they're sauteing.
Cheryl, did you get the Denise one?
No, I
Okay.
don't have, but Salma, when we were at Salma's house recently, she was showing me hers. I don't know what that one is.
I
That
don't
looked
know,
great.
but Michelle, I bought what Denise bought and Susan Birkinshaw bought one. And I'll send you what I got because we all.
Brand
love it.
name? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
I'll
need.
find out what it is. It was a year ago
Okay.
already, but I'll get it to you.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, I'm gonna look around.
I'd like to talk about my pot, which is really my daughter's, because of course my daughter doesn't cook, but when she got married, she had a friend who really does cook all the time. And he made a list of things that she had to have. And one of them you can see on my counter is that red KitchenAid. And the other one is my stock pot, because in the beginning I used to cook in 2 pots. It's a lot easier to cook in 1. But my thoughts, Michelle, on getting a pot are, number 1, just remember when you pick things up, if it's a metal pot like mine is, if you have the lid on, make sure you've got a pot holder. If you're lifting it up, make sure you have a pot holder. And the other thing I find is when I get to the bottom and I just want to pour the soup out, the pot is pretty heavy. I mean, I'm not small.
I never pour soup out. I ladle it into containers.
Yeah, but then you get that little stuff in the bottom. And what do you do with
At
it?
that point, it's empty and I can turn it or scrape it or something. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That
Yeah.
the pots are surprisingly heavy.
Yeah, I know. This is why, so that's the balance between finding one that's strong enough and sturdy enough, but also liftable.
I have one that's heavy. I have the all clad one, and it's expensive, but it's been a really great pot.
Okay, well, that's what I need to hear. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I use as well. Almost
All clad.
all of my pots are all clad. They are expensive, but they last a really long time. They're really good, especially the ones that have either a copper ring.
I got these for my wedding 33, 34 years ago, Magma Light, and I really like them. I have them in a lot of different sizes, but I don't have the really big stock, because probably at that time I didn't think I needed it. So I bought lesser expensive, lighter metal stock pots, but I need, and this isn't made anymore. So I do want something that has this kind of, oops, that kind of thickness to it. So I'll look at all clad.
Yes, I just looked at mine. Mine is also an all clad. It is heavy. David picks it
They
up.
are, but they're so great.
So what size, like Julie, like what size is, like, are you doing this recipe in one pot tonight?
Yeah, I'll have to look at what I got it as a Hanukkah gift from my
Yeah.
family because I was doing soup so much. So I'll have to look at what they ordered,
Yeah.
what size it is, and I'll
Yeah,
let you.
what size it is.
And then they got it at Great Barrel.
The one that's
Mine is
has a lip that you can pour from. That
Oh, that sounds nice.
ooh,
You
Yeah.
use it then, Cheryl?
I'll find out what it is. And
Okay, okay.
my pot is 10 inches high and 10.5 inches across in diameter. And
Okay.
it does have, it has obviously a lid, but it also has this strainer thing in it. And the strainer thing has a smaller strainer thing in it.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I don't use them, but I guess depending on what recipe you're making, it might be nice. I mean, you could steam things. It would be steaming a lot of vegetables to use this little top part. I keep calling it mine because I think my daughter will never learn to cook.
I muted there for a second because Penny is just giving the alert about something. It could be the neighbor's fox. Our next door neighbor has fed this fox, well, probably multiple foxes by now, for many years. And so we have a dog who has foxhound in her. So hence I want to get at the fox, and a next door neighbor who feeds a fox. So the fox comes right along our fence and she'll see it just trot across the street every evening about 6:30. So that's probably what she's letting me know is her friendly fox is back. She goes completely bananas, and it's great because the fox just looks at her and is like, yeah, you're not getting to me and I know it. You can't get over this fence. So he just taunts her and eats whatever Colleen puts outside. So, okay, so I have one pot. I did do 2 big pots because they are heavy and I don't have a massive pot to make as much as I like. So, and they're both all clad, which I love. So one of them is cooling a little bit, but if you're at the point where you feel like you can put an immersion blender in yours, I'm not quite there yet. Mine's still steaming because I see we're coming up on the hour. We've got about 5 more minutes. But basically, if you need to allow yours to continue to cool, the last step is really just to blend it until it is the desired thickness. I like mine, as I said in my notes, I like mine a little bit smoother and more blended in the springtime, a little heartier sometimes. And I think this is an Ina Garten trick. You pull out some of the potatoes in the fall and put them back in. You can even like either fork squash them or leave them as is so that you've got the blended soup with a little bit of the chunky soup for those who like to have that. But in the spring, I blend it all up. And then I love to serve it with a dollop of sour cream because then you get that creaminess, or a Greek yogurt and some snipped chives, which I happen to have some. My garden has given me chives, so I will snip some chives tonight to add on top of that creamy, beautiful soup once I'm able to garnish it.
I actually just snipped a huge amount of chives right into the soup since we're packaging it up. I think it'll be prettier if I didn't do it that way, but I really like the flavor with the chives in it. So
Yeah, I think for packaging, it'll be the way to go, obviously, to add it, obviously without the dairy, without
You're
the,
right.
but
it
with the
added a
chives
real
snipped in is nice.
Yeah.
Chives just make me happy. They're just one of those things that,
Yeah.
you know, they're so springtime
Yeah.
happy. It's like asparagus. Asparagus makes me happy. I've grown asparagus for like 12 or 13 years now in my garden. I bought a plant at one of the garden centers nearby, and I didn't realize when I bought it that you're not supposed to harvest them for like 3 years. You have to let the plant mature. So I planted it and the spears came up, and then they become like ferns. They open up and they're very feathery. It was quite lovely. But I was looking at them thinking, well, this is great, can't eat them. And this was the first year that we had enough that I was able to harvest an entire bowl of asparagus for my husband and me to eat and enjoy, which was just delightful. We did that last weekend. So after 12 years, they've earned their keep. They were delicious, but you can tell, you know, you sort of realize at that point, that's why they're so expensive.
Yeah. But they did make you happy for 11 years, even
They
without
made
eating.
even then. And I, you know, each year after the first 3 years, I would take like 1 or 2 or 3 and I'd let the rest go to ferns. And this was the first year that I actually harvested, like, I think a total of 11 or 12 spears.
Oh,
And but they grow so long so quickly that I cut them into sections and just, you know, found where they weren't, where they got to, they didn't get as tough. You know, when you buy them, you always break them.
yeah.
They didn't get tough for a long way down. So the tough parts
Nice.
went to one of our dogs who loves asparagus. So she hears me snapping in the kitchen. She comes running like, can I have some?
Oh yeah,
It's really
no,
cute.
my dogs love Mondays. They get all kinds of, I give them like the center of broccoli and cauliflower,
Yeah, and
whatever
carrots,
vegetables. They love it. Yeah.
bell peppers. They
Oh,
go
yeah.
crazy with bell peppers. So cute. It's great when something healthy can be a treat, right?
Oh yeah.
For all of us.
Yep. Well, this
All
was
right, so-
terrific. Does anybody have questions? Is everybody kind of feeling good about this one? Yeah? No,
This is
Marge?
Great.
Number one, I don't like potatoes. Number two, I've got my thyme sprigs out and 1 bay leaf. I'm missing a bay leaf.
I was
Oh,
missing
yeah.
too. And I had
Yeah,
about
sorry.
the first 10 minutes, I had to be ladling this nonsense out into a blender, which I didn't want to dirty because I was going to use my immersion. It took me 2/3 of my soup to find the second bay leaf, Marge. Hate to tell you.
Sorry, I meant to mention that before the immersion blender. You do have to remove the bay leaf.
I know, and it's really
thyme
hard
sprigs.
sometimes.
It is. They like to hide, I think.
Yeah.
They're very hidden, but
You want me to
You
drive
definitely-
over and do it?
you
Marge?
definitely don't want to blend those in. So I have one more fun leek fact to share, and that is that Queen Elizabeth II's coronation gown featured the leek, which is the emblem of what country? Anyone?
Belgium. I made that up.
No. That would be the endive, the Belgian endive.
Ah, okay.
No, does anybody know? So it's a hint that it was Queen Elizabeth II. So think about the empire, right? So it's the emblem of Wales.
Ah,
So her coronation gown featured the English Tudor rose, an Irish shamrock. All of these were embroidered onto
Oh,
the
wow.
coronation gown. The Scottish thistle, and then apparently they were quite dismayed to realize that the Welsh wasn't, the one for Wales was not a flower, it was a leek, but they had to put it on there.
Oh, I'm
So-
going to go Google that
find
dress. That's fascinating.
What I find it shocking, and the reason I find it shocking is because Welsh is a language that uses no vowels. I mean, you know, I have a bunch of Welsh friends because I work for British Telecom, and you know, they have entire words and names that don't have any vowels in them. So that the fact that leek has a double E is like,
Oh my goodness,
really?
the nerve.
All right, I can't wait
That's
to
why
go
they
find
use up
that
all their
dress.
vowels.
All right,
Yes.
well, thank you guys. Shall we say goodbye? Everybody good?
Everybody
All
good?
right. Susan,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Oh, it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
We did too. Thank you.
Thank you,
Everybody have a good
Susan.
week.
Everybody have a great
Bye,
week.
everybody.
Is
Bye.
anyone coming to my house tomorrow? Do I need to know who's coming? Okay,
Yes.
Linda,
Uh,
Susan,
Probably
no,
me.
Kelly, no.
No, I have a family in need, so
That's
I'm
fine,
gonna
that's
donate
fine.
to them this week.
Okay, that's good. So I'll see Susan and I'll see Lisa tomorrow by like 9:45-ish, right?
I'll try to single stack them so they actually freeze through this time, so you don't have to
Yeah.
babysit them for another week. Because last time was really strange. They didn't freeze through.
We had,
So-
yeah, I have a bunch in my freezer from last week, including my own that didn't freeze fully, that I held back. So they'll go tomorrow. Okay.
Right.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Thanks. This was great. Bye.
Thank you.
you.